Last night, the San Antonio Spurs lost a thrilling game to the Denver Nuggets, 136 to 134 in overtime. This game was really billed as the clash of the Titans when you think about the matchup between Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic. I had to say it was a very enjoyable matchup. Granted, I'm a Spurs fan. I do wish the Spurs could have won this game, but I did enjoy the back and forth between Victor and Jokic. It reminded me of an old school big man matchup that I saw back in the day growing up during the 90s, whether it was Ewing versus Robinson or Olajuwon versus Shaq or Shaq versus Robinson or Ewing or even Alonzo Mourning versus Olajuwon. Like, that's what it felt like, one of those old school matchups. And even to take it even way back before I even existed, when I see some of these old school videos of Kareem versus Wilt Chamberlain, it felt like that. It gave that type of energy when you saw how hard those two were going at each other in the game. Granted, they didn't guard each other for the whole entire game, but for large stretches they did. So that was a lot of fun because we don't really see that a lot in this current NBA. Two great big men going at it. It brought back memories. Another matchup it brought back my mind is Duncan versus Shaq back in the day. So it was cool to see. Like, I hope we get to see more of these types of matchups. For example, Joel Embiid ducks Jokic all the time, so we don't get to see that. But this was great. And it's something I think if you're not a fan of either team, you would have enjoyed watching. That's how epic this matchup was. I remember hearing the stat after the game that Nikola Jokic has had three straight games where he scored 40 points against Victor. And I've checked Victor's numbers in the last three matchups against Jokic. They've also been pretty good. He's had a 35-point game and a 20-point game where he got 23 rebounds. And then recently, the 34-point game he put up last night. So I think they're pretty much even though Jokic has gotten three straight 40-point games. I know people want to diminish Victor's defense by saying he couldn't stop Jokic. But I think he still has an impact on Jokic. I think this is just like a matchup where I would describe the phrase iron sharpens iron really applies. I think Victor really does play Jokic tough, but I think Jokic gets inspired by going up against Victor, which, that happens with great players when they face other great players who want to prove themselves. That I think Jokic's focus level goes up to another level where he's hitting these ridiculous shots that are contested. In this game, Victor blocked him, I think, three or four times, and Jokic still calmly adjusted later on, either after he got blocked with a counter, if he got the rebound, or it didn't deter him from playing aggressive. He still found ways around it despite getting blocked a few times. It didn't stop him, which shows that how supremely confident Jokic is. Despite getting blocked, he's not going to get deterred. But it was an awesome matchup. It was great to see. I felt the Spurs should have won this game. They had control of this game for the most part for like four quarters. And then they slipped up in the fourth quarter. I think their biggest lead at one point in time in this game might have been like 12 points. Let me just look if it shows the biggest lead here. Yeah, large lead they had was 13 in this game, but they could never really get beyond it. I think one of the biggest issues I saw with the Spurs in this game was like, I always felt they were just like one or two possessions away from putting away the Nuggets. And if they could just score another bucket, the Nuggets would fall apart, but they could never get that extra bucket to just end the game. And I think that was like a sign of inexperience, that a young team not stepping on the throats of a team when it's necessary to put away. They failed in that regard, so that was frustrating to see because I really felt they should have won this game. There was a sequence in the fourth quarter, which I could tell after it happened they were going to lose. They were up by like 6 points with like a minute 34 seconds left, and De'Aaron Fox, for whatever reason, stupidly tries to contest a 3-point shot by Cam Johnson and fouls him. Cam Johnson not only makes the 3-point shot, he then gets fouled, and then he has to end one play, and he makes a free throw. So that's 4 points on one possession in a tightly contested game, in which the Spurs are up by 6 with, I believe, a minute 34 left. That cut the lead down to 2. And that just gave the Nuggets all the momentum in this game. Even though the Spurs are up by 2, I just had a feeling they were going to lose the game. I could just see the momentum just shift after that play. And I had to say, De'Aaron Fox just played stupidly throughout this game, especially in the clutch in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime. He made a lot of dumb plays, which was disappointing considering De'Aaron Fox did win Clutch Player of the Year award, I think, a few years back. He's known to be really good in the clutch, but for some reason, he just made dumb decisions in the clutch in this game. He took a lot of bad three-point shots. He shot a lot of bricks. I think there was this one possession, even in the overtime, where he had an opportunity to win the game, and he bricked like a 5-foot shot. So very frustrating, but just going back to the game, Jokic hit some clutch shots in the final few minutes of the fourth against Victor, and he did it in the overtime. So you tip your hat off to him. You give him credit. He was clutch when it really mattered, and he hit some insanely ridiculous shots that great players like him does. So it was overall an exciting matchup, and something the Spurs can learn. It's better to have a heartbreaking regular season loss versus a playoff loss. Granted, the critics do have a point when they say the Spurs' biggest weakness is lack of experience, and that could cost them the playoffs. That's definitely something you got to factor in. It is just the reality of the situation, and Denver showed in that game that the Spurs' inexperience can be exploited, and they exploited it in the clutch and overtime with Murray and Jokic just picking them apart, running plays. And that's just the growing pains of a young team that you just had to live through as a Spurs fan. It's tough to watch, but I understand that it's just going to happen. They don't have the experience. So they could be had in that regard. Now, the Spurs face the Nuggets in a playoff series. I think it would go 7 games. And I still think the Spurs would have a chance to win that series. I think it's like a 50-50 series. That's the way I look at it. So it will be hotly contested if these two teams match up. And even though I'm a Spurs fan, I acknowledge that this is a tough matchup they can win. But I think one thing's exciting is to see Victor versus Jokic in a 7-game series. I think that would be a classic matchup. If it goes down, I think there's a high chance it probably will happen now. When you look at the Lakers in the standings, they're only 1 game ahead of the Nuggets, and I think they're going to fall the 3 seed, and Nuggets probably get the 3 seed. So there's a high chance you're going to see these two teams match up again in the playoffs, which I think will be a lot of fun. So that's the way I look at it. I don't have anything else to say about it.